Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Mandatory Live. We took about a couple of weeks off, or I guess a week off, Brian, but we're back and we
Yeah,
got
just
some
one.
big news to talk about. It felt like 2 weeks to me, I swear. There was still a lot of boxing news that came out, so we're going to touch on everything. A little bit of what we're going to focus on in just a moment will be Alycia Baumgardner signing to Jake Paul's promotional company. We will be getting into that. Also, before we get into the biggest news of today's episode, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO, and you can also find us on the audio side as well. So if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review because that helps the channel grow as well. Brian, before we get into all the crazy boxing stuff, how have you been, man? You've been doing a lot of stuff on your own channel.
This is
March
true.
Madness, like the games are on right now, and we're doing this, which is wild.
Did you fill out a bracket this year?
I fill out a bracket every year, multiple brackets.
Okay, yeah. I only have one for each tournament this year.
Yeah.
I never count on it to do well. I just want to get like half the final four right, and I'm good. But yeah, right now, as of when we're recording this, Creighton's playing Louisville, and obviously there's boxing things to talk about. We will get into that. We want to do a post-fight show. One of these weeks coming up. It will not be this week, and it will not be next week because this week we're both busy. Next week, I'm not even going to be around, but the week after is what we're targeting. So if you want to mark that on your calendars, April 5th, that is, Richard Torres fights Guido Vianello, Richard Torres'
Yes.
first main event. That's exciting. And Tim Zhu fights, it's listed April 6th. That may be our time. So
It'll
I
be,
don't,
yeah.
so we might only get to preview that and then talk about it after the fact. He fights Joey Spencer coming up. Keith Thurman fought recently. He looked awesome.
I think Joey Spencer could win that fight.
Me too.
I think I'm
Oh,
going to place money on Joey Spencer on that fight. But by the way, guys, this is an interactive show, so make sure to drop your comments, talk to us throughout the show. We will be reading them. Brian, thank you for giving them our schedule because obviously we do the post-fight shows for you guys, and it's probably the most fun. So we definitely want to do that. Hey,
for
Sue's
real.
friend of the show. Thank you for joining us this morning here on the West Coast, obviously afternoon on the East Coast. Brian, let's get right into it because TKO, which is the boxing promotion that Turk and Dana White came together, if
Mm,
you have been living underneath a rock, and it was reported that the fighter purses were revealed, and that was by Boxing Scene. And these fighter purses, Brian, kind of seem like it's the UFC type of blueprint that's going
mhm.
on over here. Let's take a look at some of them here.
Whoops.
Okay. So are you going to put it up on the screen there?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna make sure this is a little bit bigger.
Oh, that's a nice photo of them all being all happy and stuff. New boxing promotion.
Yeah,
And
it
then boom.
doesn't look spooky at all with the
No.
black screen and just super ominous. But this is a story that Shantelle is referring to. This is via Boxing Scene. Let's actually take this lower third out because so we can see your face a little bit more. So we have Unboxing Scene. Everything we know so far about the new TKO Boxing League, from payments to potential problems. So it's worth noting that TKO, if you've been living under a rock, as Shantelle mentioned, new boxing promotion, yada yada yada. Turkey al-shiekh, Dana White, Nick Khan,
Mhm.
major name there. Also, former CAA agent who works closely with TKO WWE, who used to represent people like Ariel Helwani, Dan Lebitard, like a very powerful, influential agent at one point, and influential in ESPN in particular.
Yeah.
So this is a story that's being referred to, and then we will debut a new segment here called reading, where we will
Where
where we
we
will,
read.
yeah, we're not gonna read the whole thing, but
And if we read for like if we read 10 sentences, we have a pizza party. Did you guys ever do that where you read 10 books and you have a pizza party
yeah,
or something like
actually.
that? What a good time, right? Being a kid. Anyways, go on.
That
Sorry.
was definitely a thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so a glimpse into the new TKO a boxing franchise, how it'll operate, has begun taking shape. I bungled that off the bat. We're off to a fantastic start. According to boxing authorities who reviewed documents presented to fighters, A managerial arm has been formed to support the circuit funded by Saudi Arabia's Turkey al-Sheikh and ran by TKO and UFC CEO Dana White for a $10 million annual fee. That new company, known as Hawalapai Ventures, lists former top rank and pro bellum attorney Harrison Whitman and CAA agent Ishmael Hinson as partners, as has initiated contact with fighters, forwarding contract terms that reveal some of the plans according to documents reviewed by Boxing Scene. Anything interesting stand out to you there, Chantel, as we're sort of going through this right now?
No, keep reading. Like, was anything that popped up to you that you were like, that's kind of interesting?
The $10 million annual fee.
Okay, yeah.
That's nothing. And then I want to paraphrase. I just want to kind of go through it, but just wanted to read that so you get the lay of the land there. We have Dana White, who was interviewed recently with Dan Rafael of Big Fight Weekend, formerly of ESPN, formerly of USA Today, USA Today, that there's, quote, over 150 guys we're looking to sign. If by guys he means guys or by guys he means fighters is important sort of detail to me, because we've talked about the lack of a female boxing presence in Saudi Arabia. I think there's been one fight with Sky Nicholson and Raven Chapman that was like stuffed. I think somewhere on the undercard of I'm forgetting what card that was last year. Sky Nicholson actually has a title defense coming up this week.
You know what? I think sometimes that can be semantics, but I don't think it is. Like, like word for word, he said we're looking to sign some guys. Like, you can call it semantics if you want, but it's true. There hasn't been women fights. Like, there's been that one fight. And that's
Yeah.
so surprising to me because there could be so many massive fights made in women's boxing, but it hasn't been touched. And of course, Clarissa Shields at one point was like, "Yo, Turkey, let's get a fight going." Never happened. One of the biggest names in the sport. Very interesting. All right, let's keep going. I do have the purses right here listed and ready to go whenever you're
Yeah,
ready.
we're gonna get to that shortly. Um, I think this is worth stopping for. White also said they wants to limit the number of divisions, likely keeping the traditional classes. And if you're wondering why is Dana White saying all of this and why is Turkey, like, Turkey has said publicly at least that he's letting Dana White sort of run the show, but I'm sure that Turkey will not. He's not gonna not have a say. Like, somebody who was basically, he has a lot of money, and somebody who has a lot of money is not going to shut the fuck up. That's not how having money works. White says they also want to keep the traditional weight classes. So flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. 8 weight classes as opposed to 17, 18 if you count Bridger weight now. I think there are too many weight classes. I think 8 is also too few, because I think between welterweight and middleweight, you kind of need super welterweight, because that 13-pound difference could be pretty dramatic. In the UFC, there's a big difference. Like, they need a weight class in between 185 and 205. For people who don't know, 185 caps middleweight, 205 is light heavyweight in the UFC. Like, you need a 195. I feel like it should be like every 10 pounds. What do you think about the weight class piece of this?
I agree with you. I do believe there should be like one more weight class because that's a huge, huge gap. I think every 10 pounds makes sense. But if you're a casual fan or you're wanting to get into boxing, this is a great blueprint because you don't have to follow all of the different weight classes. And there's only going to be that one champ for that weight class. And I think that's kind of the pro for it because, as you know, in boxing, if you're not someone that's a diehard fan or that's following the sport like us, Bryan, you're very confused. Like, you're very confused on the weight classes, what those weight classes are. Because also, let's keep in mind, the weight classes in boxing are not the same weight classes in UFC.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
Yeah.
the same. And, even like diehard UFC fans, I remember one time I was talking about welterweight and one of my friends, huge UFC guy. And I was like, yeah, man, you could be a welterweight. And he's like, oh, I'm way heavier than a welterweight. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or he said he weighed a lot less than a welterweight. Sorry. Because he was like around like 140 ish. And as you know, welterweight in UFC is a little bit heavier.
Yeah, welterweight is 170, I think, in the
Yeah,
UFC.
so like it's different, right? So this way it'll be easier to follow. So I'm with that part because I think it'll bring a lot more casual fans and it'll be easier to follow the sport. maybe people will want to cover the sport a little bit more because it'll be easier. Because as you know, some people are kind of afraid to touch boxing as well because it can be complicated, especially when you get into like super champions and stuff like that.
Not some. Like, there's a reason mostly like most boxing fans consume content on YouTube is because the
Yeah.
major outlets don't really touch it outside of big stories like this one. Because I do see like just the TKO element just being covered, and then you also have the occasional big fight. Like Tank is gonna get coverage, Canelo's gonna get coverage, but outside of those two guys, Crawford will get coverage as well.
Yeah.
There's not much else that like they're not going to do much on Better Biev or Bivol or
Which
even
is
Inoue.
unfortunate, which is
Yeah,
crazy, which is I think that's the craziest thing ever. So, I do like this aspect of it. Brian, do you have a problem with the weight classes or how many there are? I think you said there's too few.
like 18 is too many, 8 is too few. I think you need like super. You need some of the super.
Yes.
You need super middleweight. You need super welterweight. Like there's a 13-pound gap between 147 and 160 welterweight and middleweight. You need that 154. That makes a lot of sense. You need that 168, especially super middleweight, which has been a great weight class. I think one of the better weight classes since it's been implemented in a large scale way. Like, I mean, we got the Super Six because of it, right? So,
Yeah.
Andre Ward, who surprised a lot of people. But with super middleweight, that's 168. That's in between 160 and 175. If you're somebody who naturally is or should be fighting at super middleweight, like it's very hard to just be at 160, go down to 160 or go up to 175. I think that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
think, and I also have long thought this, like, for all the shit we say cruiserweight boxing is not like cruiserweight boxing is probably the single weight class that people care the least about.
Yeah.
Why the fuck is there nothing in between light heavyweight and cruiserweight when the
That's
cruiserweight limit is
madness.
200 pounds? That's fucking stupid to me.
Yeah,
I'd
that's
be interested
madness.
in them being like, yo, light heavyweight is actually, instead of 175, it's going to be 185 or 190. You know,
I think every 10 pounds makes sense.
I think every
Every
10 pounds would be perfect. I don't know why they did it the way they did it in boxing mad years ago,
Yeah.
but I mean, it is what it is. And I also think like if you have featherweight at 126 and you have lightweight at 135, I don't know if you need a super featherweight. Like that's one weight class where I'm like, it's a look, Oshaki Foster, Emmanuel Navarrete, like
Can I maybe I'm being like super lame, but I love the boxing weight classes. I get them. They make sense to me because when
I
you
like them more than the MMA ones. I
for
agree with that.
100% because it's like 5 pounds is a huge difference. So even if you're doing every 10 pounds, that's a pretty big difference, right? So I like that there's bantamweight and featherweight. Like I love it. Super bantamweight. I'm into it. And maybe I'm just used to the boxing blueprint of the weight classes, but to me it makes sense. But if we're trying to make it more, I guess, more understanding
Yeah.
to other fans, then yeah, that's too many weight classes that people can't keep up with. But to me, it makes all the sense in the world. And maybe that's just me, but this is a good blueprint for a boxing promotion that's going to start off that is similar to the UFC where people can easily understand it. Because if something is complicating, people just, tap out.
Yeah, and I think when you get into the really lightweight classes, that's where you can shave off some weight classes. Like atom weight or minimum weight is 102, straw weight is 105, and then you have junior flyweight is 108. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we don't need every 3 pounds even at that level. I know 3 pounds is a lot when you're down there, but like you can just go like 105 could be minimum weight, which
Yes.
is actually the case in MMA. 105 is atom weight, and then you have 115, and then you have 125. Like that
That
actually
makes
makes a lot
sense.
of sense.
Yeah.
The problem MMA has is you go from 145 to 155 to 170 to 185 to 205. That doesn't make sense. Why did you just why not just go 65, 75, 85, 95? We're like, you know what it is? Dudes make these rules and dudes are fucking dumb. That's what it comes down to. All right. So with we'll skip ahead a little bit here. With Ring Magazine, will keep its legacy of 103 years, Turkey al-Sheikh says, and not be involved in any of these things. This is something separate. This is in reference to the one of the contacts reviewed, or one of the contracts reviewed by Boxing Scene showed a purse structure and the intended reliance on the company rankings, quote unquote. The purse structure, which you should bring up now, was a Turkey al-Sheikh was not happy that it got out. It didn't sound like a straight denial, but whatever.
All right, let's go through it. So $20,000 for a 10-round bout by an unranked fighter. 20
Hmm.
bans.
Hmm.
$50,000 when ranked by the company at number 5 to number 10. $125,000 when ranked by the company at number 3 to number 4. $375,000 when challenging for a company championship. And oh, this one has to be the best one. Putting your life on the line. $750,000 when defending company championship. Like, we knew that it could be very possible that the purses would be similar to UFC. And as you know, the guys in UFC don't make the amount of bread that the guys do in boxing. Like, we know
At
this.
top level, no, they don't.
Yeah, yeah. So when I'm taking a look at these purses, Bryan, I think it, like, with turkeys involved, you would think it would be more bread, but
No, you
no.
wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Because the
Really?
whole reason why they're making this promotion is so that they can actually make most of the money. Like this
Yeah,
is where the money is coming from. Because Turkey is just like he's a fan. So he's just throwing all this money like everywhere, being like, oh yeah, I'll pay millions and millions for this and millions for that. Where at some point, I don't care how much money you have, you're gonna look at how you're spending this and you're gonna be like, okay, how could I actually make money off of this? And the way
yeah,
you do it is you set up a promotion, or as they're calling it, a league, quote unquote. You set this up, and it's going to be like the UFC model, not even from the standpoint of just the strict payments, but like the UFC is basically a casino or a sports book where the
yeah.
house always wins. That's what this is going to be, where
Well,
most of
this,
the money is going to be for the company. The same thing with WWE. Like if you look up what WWE wrestlers make, in terms of on a year to year basis, there are wrestlers you're going to be surprised that, like, wait, they barely make seven figures or don't even make seven figures at all. Like, yeah, that happens. And while traveling, while working a lot harder, no disrespect, than MMA fighters in terms of traveling all year long. Like
mhm,
all year long. You're constantly on the road if you're a wrestler. So like, yeah, like this is how these companies are so successful. So when fans say, "Hey, we want this to be under one umbrella," there's a lot that comes with that in a negative aspect also for the actual performers, but they sign up to do it because ultimately the trade-off is, look at where I'm at. I'm going to be with this big thing, whether it be the UFC. And if you're in MMA, like that's the ultimate goal. If you're in wrestling, that's the ultimate goal, which is really a representation on the industry at large, because AEW was coming out of the gate being like, oh, we're going to pay X amount for this and X amount for that, and just throwing money. And you realize Tony Khan, who's in charge, he doesn't know what the fuck to do, because he's like spending so much money. He's not like wildly successful at running the actual company either.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But at the same time, this is just another way where Dana White can rip off his fighters. Like, that's literally what it is, right? Like, let's be serious here. We know how much money Dana's made off the UFC and how fighters have gotten paid a very low amount. Let's go to Jesus right away. $20,000 is too low for an unranked fighter. That's terrible. Like, what are we doing here? They're not tomato cans. But also, Bryan, I think what will be really interesting is who's going to be fighting in this league. I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this on the audio side.
Got to be
I
prospects.
it has to, right?
Mhm.
Because you wouldn't think that champions would take this type of purse to be in this league. Now, I feel like it's going to be a lot of guys that are trying to make a name and are trying to
Mhm.
come up, and not so many big names. I don't know how many big names will attach themselves to this. Like, I couldn't see myself seeing Teofimo Lopez in this.
No, but TKO. Jesus leaves a comment about TKO being like it might good might be good for fighters who don't get fights but are highly skilled, such as Callum Walsh, Chop Gonzalez, etc. Like
Yeah.
Callum Walsh is somebody who's, it seems like they're gearing up for that. Like Tom Loeffler, who is with I think 360 Promotions, who used to be with Gennady Golovkin, K2. Like he's done stuff with Dana White. It feels like he's gonna be like just reading the tea leaves, and he's had cards, a lot of cards that you can watch on like UFC Fight Pass, for example, as a boxing sort of thing. And they just had Callum Walsh in New York City believe it was Sunday, where he won by a nice knockout, solid knockout. Callum Walsh is like perfect for something like this. Tom
Yeah.
Loeffler seems like, I don't know if he's going to be a promoter, matchmaker, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't have a role in this also to like help grow it or whatever. But yeah, like this is reading to me, and this is one of the things they emphasize in the press release or just in the initial announcement is like, yeah, they're looking at sort of prospects. And I think part of this is also like boxers who aren't at the top level don't make as much as people think. Like 20K for someone who's quote unquote unranked might actually be very good. The problem
Yeah.
is the person who I'm thinking about that's unranked is probably not somebody that this league would be interested in. Because I don't know how many journeymen and women, journeymen for being honest, because I don't know how much of a female presence they're going to have. We'll get to that later. I don't know how many of those guys are going to be like signed to this league, because if it's operating as a UFC,
Hmm.
then you're only targeting like elite talents or high end guys. Like you're not targeting and prospects. And prospects, if you're a prospect, a legit prospect in boxing, you're probably like 12-0, 8 knockouts, 15-1, 12 knockouts. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
not somebody who has a bunch of losses on their record. So 20K for those type of people, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be okay with them. And I don't know if this, like, do we know anything about win bonuses, and are there going to be that much of a UFC model?
Probably. I would assume so. And maybe that wasn't reported, but the purses were reported. So I thought that was the most interesting because I'm taking a look even at the championship and I'm like, that's not that much bread. Also, keep in mind that you have to pay your whole team. You have to pay your agent. So after you win this, it's like what are you left with? Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big thing about it too. But
Taxes, yeah.
nonetheless, this is. I feel like we expected this, Bryan, when we heard this boxing promotion was announced. Like we knew if Dana White was involved, it's probably going to have that UFC blueprint, and that's exactly kind of what it has here. Now, my biggest question to you, and we've kind of been. Well, you've kind of been through this on your channel, and if you haven't been on
No,
Bryan's
Jesus,
channel,
no, I don't think. Hold on, real quick,
yeah,
Chantel. Jesus says 20K must be a take home net. It can't be gross. No, a
no,
lot of times it's just gross.
yeah,
And a lot of times, see, that's the thing that people don't understand about like athlete salaries and athlete purses or whatever. A lot of times that's like untaxed.
yeah,
So that's like before taxes. That's before, as Chantel was just mentioning, you pay whatever percentage to your manager, whatever percentage to your agent if you have one. Most guys have managers. Then your trainers, cut
yeah,
men, sparring partners, you've already paid them. You know what I mean? Depending on the arrangement you have, you may pay them after the fact. I don't know, but sparring partners, like just training facilities in general, to train is expensive. This is why a lot of people like Josh Padley, for example, was a full-time electrician because like training camps and investing in boxing is expensive. That's why you need your big break in order to be like, yo, I can train now. I remember Grady Brewer many years ago. This is a fucking callback for this is for the real fucking boxing nerds. Grady Brewer, Bad Boy Brewer, won season 2 of The Contender, the one that was on ESPN. And I remember he worked at like Goodyear. He was working with tires or whatever the case may be. And he's just like, yo, I've never been able to afford a training camp. I've had to take fights on short notice, this, that, and the third. And then he wins the Contender. He gets, I forget what the purse was, if it was 250K or 500K. Unfortunately, he has an injury and doesn't fight for 2 years. And then that kind of sidelines his career even more. But before that, he was a journeyman with a bunch of losses, like a double-digit amount of losses. And he was like, yo, now I'm able to sort of invest and have a training camp and things of that nature. Like the boxing is very difficult. This is why you look up, there's people that you've probably like heard of or you've seen them fight on like Friday Night Fights back in the day. You look up their box rec and it's like, oh, why did they stop fighting after being 14-2? Because they were probably losing money hand over fist and getting their fucking ass whooped all the time.
yeah. I mean, I think Bryan kind of summed that up pretty nicely. It's definitely gross. And after, like, what are you left with? And that's why I think 20,000K for unranked is ridiculous. I actually think all the purses are not good, especially if you're putting your life on the line. Like, we kind of forget that, Bryan. Would you put your life on the line for 20K? I don't think I would, because I might
No.
end up with 11 after. You know what I mean? Like maybe less. Like I don't know if I'm doing it for 11K. I think what's really interesting, and I was about to ask you this, Bryan, because we didn't really get to it on the mandatory, but this boxing promotion, like, what do you think this means for boxing in general? Because as you know, like we're hearing rumors. Obviously, you've seen it online. Like PBC, are they going to be able to last? Like, there's so many different things that we're hearing because of the change in boxing, how it's marketed, where you can access it. For example, ESPN and Top Rank have parted ways. They will be after their deal is done.
Yeah, they will not yet.
Yeah, I think that's like in August or something like that. So when you take a look at this new boxing promotion, you're looking at the fighter purses. We know how much hype is behind this. Where do you see boxing as a whole, as the state of boxing? And is this sustainable? Like all the stuff Turkey is doing, is this all sustainable?
I don't think so, but they have the money to prove that it's going to be for at least an amount of time. I think the other thing is like when Turkey came into the door with all this money, all of the promoters opened their legs for him. So it was like Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Bob Arrow. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, pay us and yeah, Saudi, all this shit. Like, yeah, however much money. And Turkey, you know, while he's saying they're going to work with the promoters or whatever, eventually, like, yeah, they're going to want to corner the entire market, take control of boxing, and put the other promoters. I don't know if out of business is the right term, but just make life a lot harder for them. You're not going to get rid of the promoters or the sanctioning bodies right away overnight, like the WBC, the IBF, the WBO, and the WBA, but they're going to be in trouble if this thing really takes off. We'll see if it does. I think as Turkey continues to act out, which we also need to get to, which I probably should get to right now because we don't have that much time left. But
Yes.
yeah, but like if Turkey continues to like act out a little bit, yeah, he's gonna lose some favor with the public, and then we'll see. But we've been talking about this for months when everyone's like, "Oh, Turkey is saving boxing," you know, and making all the great fights, and it's like, all right, like, do you really think a billionaire is going to have like noble intentions when they come into something throwing a lot of money
Yeah.
everywhere? Like, look at what he did yesterday on Twitter. So we can talk about this now because this is part of like what we're referring to in terms of the sustainability of this. So here we have a Ring Magazine tweet and waiting for that car to pass by New York City. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Got the little police siren out there. The boys out to get somebody. You know what I mean? All right. So Ring Magazine, we got this is Ring Magazine who Turkey al-Sheikh bought for starters, right? Like you could say Oscar De La Hoya had Ring Magazine before, so it was like Golden Boy favorite or whatever. But I didn't read Ring Magazine and like they had a pound for pound where I was like, I wasn't seeing 10 Golden Boy guys. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't super egregious, is the point. Ring Magazine's pound for pound, I suppose, is fine, but that's for now. So, and they have legitimate media people there for the time being. You know, Douglas Fisher is running the shit. And like he's editor in chief for the time being. So here we go. Ring Magazine. Turkey al-Sheikh responds to a circulating article regarding the TKO League. And this is the quote. This article is not factually accurate. I think Gary Jonas, by the way, Gary Jonas, who runs ProBox TV right now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that if he runs it or what's his exact role. I'm pretty sure he runs it. Yes, he's the CEO and co-founder of Management. Just wanted to make sure we had that accurate because I'm like, I know he's the head of it, but I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
he's actually
And shout
running
out to
the show.
Pro Box. They put on some good fights. Just
Pro
saying.
Box, you could argue, is the best thing going on in boxing right now.
Yeah.
Like you could legitimately argue that. The fights are on YouTube. They're easy to watch. The broadcast is professionally done. Their shows throughout the week are professionally done. Like just for no reason at all. Shout out to Pro Box. I think Gary Jonas should focus on his business in Florida because he doesn't want the FTC to call him again. I'm wondering what the structure of his business model with the rehab facilities and boxing. Like, what is the structure or whatever? And it's like uh, credit to the people because the responses weren't awesome. Like in favor of Turkey, you know what I mean? Like this one right here, your owner proudly works for a regime that murdered a journalist.
Oh
No,
my
it
god.
appears
Yeah.
that the regime just buys them. In fact, MBS who ordered da 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 da. I don't know about all the other stuff here, but like there is like you could do some digging and find some things. Is the point? Turkey, your skin is proven to be way too thin for a lasting run in boxing. Got to personalize everything. Now resorted to some passive aggressive threat and BS. And what happened to the ring being independent? If you thought Ring Magazine was going to be independent after they bought this, like you're fooling yourself. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, there's no fucking way that was going to be the case.
And he has his hands in it, as he will have his hands in this boxing promotion, even though he says he's going to step away. And this is him, Bryan, as you said, acting out. And we're going to see more of this acting out. And I think it's going to get pretty bad at one point
I
where,
appreciate what Turkey has done for boxing, someone says, but the way he talks about anyone going against him is off-putting. I think we could. I think we don't need to screen share anymore. I think we're
no,
good.
I don't think so either. But it's true. He's very emotional, clearly. And I think this is something that we're going to continue to see, especially if things get revealed without him giving the okay and news coming out. So I really believe that this is something we're going to continue to see, Bryan. And let's see how long it lasts, because I feel like right now there's kind of like people got their, what do they call them, like rose colored glasses or goggles on
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
about
right.
Turk. And I feel like when things like this happen, we're going to see the real side, because people can put up
We're
a
already
front.
seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we're going to continue to see, but there's still some, rose-colored goggles that people have on about this. But I want to see how this boxing promotion goes, and hey, like if it does well, it might be really good for boxing. But I feel like we'll see how sustainable it is, and we'll see kind of how it goes. Bryan, any final thoughts before we move on to our final subject?
Jesus actually asked us about a Pro Box TV coming this Saturday with Lester Martinez and Joe Sean James. Who you got? Um, that's a good one. That's the other
Yeah,
thing. They actually put on like good fights. Like
good matchmaking.
Chris Colbert got knocked out there not that long ago. I've been very excited about Najee Lopez, who's been developing there. Nicholas Flaz, who is a Puerto Rican welterweight. He's fighting Gabriel Maestre, April 5th. That's going to be at the 2300 Arena. So that's going to be a Pro Box TV event that's going to be in Philly, which is a lot of fun. I think Flaz is good. He's tough. He's got a couple losses, but he can fucking hit. So that's going to be a really good step up fight. Mike Williams is also on that card. Haven Brady Jr. also, Gio Lopez. That's a good card. Yeah,
They put on good cards. Yeah.
I just think with the turkey stuff, it's like, yo, like this is how it's gonna be. Like, it, I don't. Did people think he was going to come in and be like, humanitarian of the year, like super charitable, just putting on all the good fights? Like, no, we were telling you, like, there's a reason that they're giving you candy now, but eventually you're gonna have to eat your vegetables. Like, that's all this comes down to. Like, and we're gonna see, like, once this launches, TKO is gonna be fully launched like next year. The Ring Magazine, like, there's a reason why if you follow them on Twitter, everything Turkey wants to put out there, it's going to be put out there through the Ring Magazine. This is going to be effectively his propaganda arm. This is going to be where he wants to put out the favorable things that are towards him. This is why when we heard the little threat, he was threatening Dmitry Bivol, it sounded like. He was threatening Dmitry Bivol, being like, hey, remember, like, not in other words, remember who paid you. You know what I mean? When talking about sort of like the prospect of him fighting David Benavidez as opposed to doing the trilogy with Artur Beterbiev. And immediately they put something out being like, Turkey, like, this is what he has to think about this. So whatever you want, you don't even need to follow him on Twitter. Just follow Ring Magazine and they're going to post it out there. And like, this is just where we are in terms of boxing right now. So it's going to be weird. I don't think boxing has a savior. And I don't think a lot of people are going to benefit from this long term.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see, but I did feel like that was a threat to Dmitry Bivol. And so our boxer's going to continue to get threatened like this. And when you have a publication, because that's what Ring Magazine is, that can kind of put you in a good light every time, you're kind of winning there. So I would say take it with a grain of salt, some things. And if anyone goes against it or reports anything against him, he's gonna shut it down, and let's see
Yeah.
kind of how he acts. So that's kind of a big thing. Bryan from one
Think think
boxing.
of think of Dana White's adversarial relationship with media. He didn't even care to have journalists cover MMA unless they're favorable to the UFC. And this is
But
why,
I feel
like,
like, but here's the thing. I feel like a lot of even sports teams are like that, right?
right,
Like
but that's
if
what
you cover sports teams, then you know that
they're
like if you go
getting.
against it, then
They're moving towards that level. It's just up another level when it comes to guys like Dana and Turk who have a lot of money and who basically, like, look, they're basically looking at you like, look, if I pay you, then in other words, like, you owe me now. Like, this is how the transaction sort of works in their minds. And in a lot of people's minds who just have a lot of money, they feel like, look, if I'm worth X amount of money and I give somebody $1 million, this is how a lot of owners look at the players on their sports teams.
it's a control thing.
Yes.
It's a total control thing, and he likes to have the control. And in boxing, it's like, news is going to break here and there. People hear rumors, and it'll be interesting to see how he acts, if he acts out, and how this will continue to go. If a boxer gets on his bad side, if a boxer puts him on blast, like these are things, it's going to be interesting. The next year in boxing will be interesting because this
Yeah.
is bound to happen. You can't control everything. And this is someone that's used to controlling everything because he has all of that money. So, I mean, Bryan from one boxing promotion to another, MVP. You heard it yesterday. If you didn't, Alycia Baumgardner signs a deal with MVP. She joins Jake Paul and obviously Amanda Serrano. Bryan, how big is this news for Alycia Baumgardner? I mean, she's going to be probably, most likely, fighting on a lot of these Jake Paul cards, but she will also be making some bread. This is a platform that also I feel like casual boxing fans look forward to watching a lot of these Jake Paul fights. But what does this deal that Alycia Baumgardner signed with MVP tell you?
A couple different things. One, I have very different takeaways from this than I think the average person, because I think people will look at this and be like, "Oh shit, Alicia Baumgartner is about to get more exposure. She's about to take off again," because she already took off before. Then the whole steroid thing happened, and we don't know, we don't know what happened there. But she's back now, and I think what happens here is two things. One, this, and I cover this on my channel also. I'll get into a snippet of it here, hoping that you also go over there and then come back here. And you should subscribe to both. But my main point in sort of looking at this signing was, one, this is an avenue Jake Paul and MVP could not exploit. That's not the right word, but could attack where I don't think TKO boxing will, and that's women's boxing. And you have Amanda Serrano to do it. That's point number two. Because I think Amanda Serrano, we would all acknowledge, as awesome as she is, she's closer to the end of her career than the start of her career. She's even tweeted out, like, yo, I can't do this forever. And she knows this because, I mean, fuck, have you seen her fight? Her fights are tough. You know what I mean? Like, she dishes out a lot of punishment. She takes some back. And she's been fighting this way for a long time. Granted, not a ton of wars, but like the Katie Taylor fights are wars. The Heather Hardy fights were kind of wars. Like, these are all tough fights, and it's a taxing style. Amanda Serrano's just elite at it, and there's a reason she signed a lifetime contract with MVP recently, a lifetime one. It's not to box until she's 60 years old. It's so that she can transition into managing fighters, transitioning into potentially growing, not potentially, growing MVP. And I promise you that a big part of what she wants to do is grow their women's boxing presence, because that's what she's been trying to do for years. Like, before she was even making real money. You want to talk about shitty fight purses. She was a world champion making four figures on a fight, not even fighting on TV before blowing up the way she has and becoming the highest paid female fight ever. And I think together, Jake Paul, MVP, Amanda Serrano are going to look at more Alycia Baumgardners, try to bring them on, because they know TKO is not going to attack women's boxing like that. Because look at who's running TKO, and look at who they're tied to, and look at the rights of women, where they're tied to. Like, if you just do all the sort of math here, Like that's sort of my takeaway here. It's not just Alycia Baumgardner. Like, yes, she should. Hopefully, she's the co-feature on Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano 3. Hopefully, she has big fights. Maybe even one day we'll see Amanda Serrano versus Alycia Baumgardner. Still, maybe that's a torch passing. I don't know what that's going to be, but I think the main thing here is that MVP is going to try to attack women's boxing. Um, and that's been something that Amanda Serrano's told us, and that's been something that Jake Paul's told us. And I think business wise, it is very smart to do that.
So this is really interesting. So my take is a little bit similar than yours, but as you know, with the announcement of TKO's boxing promotion, I think people have really slept on what MVP has done, because MVP is also putting on fights. MVP also has a deal with DAZN. MVP is also paying their fighters a decent amount when they are on those big cards. Now, Bryan mentioned that Amanda Serrano was making like four figures. She was a world champ. She was not making a lot of money. And that's why when she fought Heather Hardy this last time around, it was like, yo, we kind of helped each other there, right? And Heather Hardy gave Amanda Serrano her props because that was the most she ever made on a fight, I believe. And this is what women have been fighting for a very long time. Now, as much as you want to dislike Jake Paul, if you do, he's really put women's boxing on a platform and also given Amanda Serrano some shine as well, even though she should have got it herself. But women's boxing is in a different state than it was 5 years ago, which is crazy, right? It's at the peak that it's like right now it's at its peak, and it's only going to get better, I feel like. So when I take a look at MVP signing one of the biggest names in women's boxing, steroids or not, right? It's Alycia Baumgardner, who is really, really on a rise. This also tells me something that MVP needs to be taken a little bit more seriously as a boxing promotion, because they have it all there. And when it's for those big cards, those Jake Paul cards, the fighters are getting paid. Like even the deal with Netflix, they're doing something different. And I think this is going to be really interesting. This is Amanda Serrano also at the latter end of her career, and they're about to build something that I feel like Bryan is really exciting. So when we talk about the different boxing promotions, as much as people want to hate on Jake Paul, I think this is great, not only for Alycia Baumgardner, because I do feel like there's another aspect of the attention she's going to get, but this will I feel like bring in more fighters of her caliber over possibly to MVP. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the bigger picture. And especially for women's boxing. And that's kind of the tie, Bryan, that I kind of had with your take. So I actually think this is a massive move. And especially when TKO has just come out. And especially since we just heard the fighter purse is revealed. And this is something I feel like we can be excited about, especially when we're talking about growing the sport, because I think TKO is kind of pushing that too. Like, yo, we're growing the sport, lesser, weight classes, easier to follow, one champ, all great. But MVP, they're on a rise too. I mean, they made history with the Netflix thing, right? Fighters are getting paid if you're on that card. Amanda Serrano's made the most money in her life being under this promotional company.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the exposure, there's so many pros to this. MVP, they put on fights on DAZN. This is legit, Bryan. And I think it needs a little bit more. I think they need more props, because what they're doing here is pretty dope.
I want to share something because it just so happened that I saw this right now because Amanda Serrano just posted this. 16 years ago today, I made my pro debut. And we're going to skip ahead here because she says, I had no intentions of becoming a champion and I took the fight because it paid me $1,500. LOL. I won the fight easy, had her hurt multiple times, blah, 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 blah. Watching the fight, didn't lose a second, but that's boxing. After that, I feel like I'm in love and here I am. There's also a post where Heather Hardy posted recently. It was very long. And Heather Hardy, who's transitioned into training now, she's not boxing anymore for health reasons. And we always wish her the best. We had her on the show. She's fucking awesome. She's talked about how little she made after winning her first world championship, and going back to like a 1-bedroom apartment, in New York. after winning a world title. Like boxers should be living better than this. That's why I love that they fought again, even though like, it was brutal to watch because it was fuck. That was a tough fight, especially because
But you gotta love it though, like how it went. Like Heather even said, like even Amanda said, like Heather gave me a shot back then, and
1000%.
I'm repaying back that favor, and like that was probably one of the most amazing and meaningful moments in women's boxing. That moment that Amanda Serrano and Heather Hardy had, because they've really, like, I don't actually think that women like Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor and Clarissa Shields are actually getting the credit that they deserve. Women like Heather Hardy, like these women have really laid out, a blueprint for women that are going to come after them, and what they've done is amazing, and they're not getting enough credit in this sport, Bryan.
So look at this. This is MVP's roster, and this is where I want to like showcase real quick. So we have Amanda Serrano here. We have Shadeja Green here. I think she could potentially fight Clarissa Shields at some point. We have Crystal Rosado here. By the way, Amanda Serrano, I don't know if people know this. She's listed as a manager on BoxRec. Crystal Rosado is one of her fighters. She's been pushing the shit out of her. When I saw her in Orlando, Crystal Rosado was on the undercard. And that was one of her first pro fights. She barely had a record at that point. She's 5-0 now. She's going to rise up very quickly, and she's going to be, I think, a future contender and champion. And Shantelle Tamara Tibalt is here, which I was very excited that I saw she signed to MVP because I think she's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I know you're high on her as well. Shout out to Canada. Olympian who I thought got robbed in the Olympics, low key, but whatever. Got a first round knockout her last fight. I want to highlight Tamara Tibalt also because she's got 2 pro fights. Both of them were 3-minute rounds, and that's another thing that MVP can do because this is something that Amanda Serrano's been pushing for. She wanted to fight Katie Taylor in 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds, and having Tamara Tibalt, do this, and I think other women are going to do this. Like they're going to start trying to get the sanctioning bodies to sign off on it.
Yeah.
3-minute round fights for women, equality, basically 3-minute round fights for women, equal purses, equal pay, 12-minute rounds, things of that nature, all of which they deserve. And now you're getting the depth to justify it. Like a Tamara Tibalt doesn't come along with that amateur pedigree and rise up the pro ranks that quickly, or Crystal Rosado, for example. That doesn't happen like 10, 15 years ago. Now we're in the space where these things can happen. So I think the Alycia Baumgardner acquisition was super smart. And I also think what they're trying to do just makes a ton of sense. But it gives you an idea of where they're going. So I think Baumgardner just highlights something bigger. And for Baumgardner individually, like she's 30, so she's in her prime. She only has that one loss already avenged. Still questions about like, all right, so what actually happened with Tess? But apparently she's clean now, and she still is undisputed. Like there hasn't been a single vacated title, to my understanding. She fought her mandatory last fight, Delphine Persoon, and if you look at that, that looked like a fucking like train wreck. And it was also a no contest due to an injury, although she scored a knockdown in that fight. Baumgardner did. So don't know who she's going to fight next, but I think MVPs, they're operating as a smart business, I got to say.
Yeah, they definitely are. And they're paving a way, doing new things, making history. So it's something to definitely keep an eye on. Bryan, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Chat, let's see. What do we have here? Steven says, there's maybe 4 or 5 women boxers with a name they got work to do. I could not disagree more.
I agree, but the 4 or 5 women boxers that their names, I mean, those are some really good names to know, and that's a good start because at one point, like, I don't think people could name any.
There's a lot more than 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Gabriela Fundora, Yocasta Valle, who I think is fighting Marla Esparza soon, Clarissa Shields, obviously, Shantelle Cameron, Alycia Baumgardner, who we mentioned, Sky Nicholson, who's got a fight against Tiara Brown this weekend, Michaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan are going to fight each other. Caroline Dubois is building a resume now.
But Bryan, we know those things because we follow boxing. But to the casual fan, I think that's what Steven is alluding to. Not, like, we know those names, but I mean, I don't think.
So with the name,
like I think people know Clarissa Shields. I think people know
Clarissa, Katie, Amanda,
Alycia.
yes. If you're talking about with the name,
That's what he's saying. Like,
that probably ends for us. Now in the UK, Lauren Price is a name.
yes,
Natasha
100%.
Jonas is a name. Caroline Dubois is a name. That matters because in the UK, boxing is bigger than it is in the US.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just like that's just is what it is. Like Costa Valle is like very famous in Costa Rica. I think she was in Dancing with the Stars in Costa Rica and shit.
I
Like,
think where you are matters, because if you told
yeah,
this to a Canadian,
worldwide though,
yeah,
I don't know. But to be fair, Stephen, like how many male boxers have a name right now? Like legitimately.
Canelo, Bud, Tank. I think you can name more, but we're just talking about casual fans.
Fury,
Yes.
Joshua.
Yeah, you would have to say those two for
Like
sure.
it's not many. You know what I mean? With the women, it's like Alycia Baumgardner. Like that's a legit. Like that's a she goes on shows that aren't boxing shows.
But I
You
think
know what I
that's
mean?
the
Like
thing
she sits
about
down with other people. Like
she
she's famous. She's
transcends
very popular.
boxing.
Yeah,
She transcends boxing, and I think once Alycia Baumgardner is done boxing, she's going to have a lot of options.
and she's not
Like,
necessarily famous for her boxing like that. You know,
which is wild, right? Which is wild. I think she's really famous because like a lot of people love the way Alycia Baumgardner looks. And I like we have a video of Alycia Baumgardner on our channel. It's a short, and I've mentioned this, and half the comments are talking about how she did steroids, and the other half is talking about how good she looks.
yeah.
And that's all it is. It's just those two. I don't understand it. And like
Yes,
one
you do.
I know I do, but it's like also really funny. I just don't understand why there's like no middle ground. It's like these
Yeah.
are I'm telling you guys right now, this is the comments. She's on roids. She's hot. She's on roids. Wow, gorgeous. Like this is literally like go look at the comments and every time I get the notification, I'm like, there's no in between. It's not like, wow, can't wait to see Alycia Baumgardner with her next fight. It's just like she's hot or she did roids. Like that's it. And so it's the funniest thing ever. But I think people do know her obviously because of her looks. But yeah. Jesus says Alycia is hot. She's very gorgeous. Yes, but like it's funny though. Like if when I read the comments on the video that we have up on our channel. All right, Bryan. Any final thoughts before we get up out of here? Kind of tight on time here.
Yeah, we're good. I think we expect to be back next week. Hopefully, nothing crazy happens before then.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button if you like the content. Also follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO. We'll be back with another episode next week, probably before Bryan dips out of the country. That's next week, right? Or is it the week after?
It is next week.
All right.
We won't say
Thanks.
where.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging
It's
out
legal.
with us, guys. Obviously.